You got some of your gold that we can see?
I got a little bit we ran yesterday.
Looks like pretty pure gold, actually, with some bigger flakes in it.
Like, got some nuggets?
Here's the nuggets I've been saving over the years.
There you go.
This story begins in the same mine that everyone had officially declared dead. The machines were down, the crew was exhausted, and even the owners had accepted that they wouldn't find even dust, let alone gold. But fate took such a turn that when Freddy Dodge and Juan Ibarra arrived at the site, within a few hours they realized, this mine can't give up so easily. The soil beneath was hidden by something so powerful that even the slightest echo could stop anyone's heart. Freddy took the first reading, and the meter suddenly spiked. Juan placed his hand in one place, and a strange metallic vibration emanated from beneath the ground. The crew initially thought it was a glitch, but when the second and third readings matched the same location, everyone's eyes were filled with pure shock. The data clearly indicated that a massive gold structure lay hidden beneath the earth. Then came the moment that shook the entire team. Soil sampling revealed a density of gold particles 600% higher than normal mines. One line from Freddy deepened the mystery. Guys, if these numbers are correct, then we're standing on top of a jackpot. No one had any idea that a gold deposit larger than 100 million was sleeping beneath. And yes, brother, let me make one thing clear. People are watching the videos, but not subscribing. This channel will grow only if you show support. If you don't want to miss such hidden gold and high-stakes rescues, then press subscribe now, because what is going to be revealed in the next few minutes has never happened before in the history of Gold Rush. As soon as Freddy and Juan arrived at this defunct mine, the atmosphere felt completely different. The air was heavy, the machines were covered in dust, and there was silence everywhere. A silence that only one thing could be heard. Something was terribly wrong with this place. Upon arriving at the site, Freddy cast his classic gold-sense gaze around and, without speaking, looked at Juan. Both their expressions were clear. This place looked as desolate as it looked from the outside, yet equally suspicious from the inside. Freddy first looked at the slope where the old wash plant had stood. The metal plates bore strange rust patterns, as if someone had applied heat from within. This also immediately struck Juan. The soil beneath the machines was smooth and hard-packed, a characteristic that occurs when there's some kind of movement underground, like a hidden structure or a sealed layer. The two experts realized with a brief glance that while the surface was empty, something was definitely lurking underground. During the site walkthrough, Juan's footsteps touched a patch of ground, making a slight hollow thump. This sound doesn't come from normal soil. Freddy immediately bent down to examine the spot carefully and said, "Something's different here. I just feel it." That was the first moment they both realized this mine wasn't just closed, perhaps it had never told its true story. The crew considered this place dead, but Freddy and Juan's instincts told them that something secret was breathing beneath. Then they noticed something strange near the main pit. The top layer of soil was black, but in some places the color inside appeared very yellow. This is considered an indirect indication of gold-rich zones. Freddy laughed and said, "If so many clues are visible above, imagine what must be going on below." Juan, too, looked genuinely excited for the first time. For both experts, this wasn't just a rescue mission, it had become a mystery. The most shocking thing in the first 5 minutes of arrival was that there seemed to be an unexplainable pattern everywhere, something that nature wouldn't create randomly. Freddy's last line made the whole situation even heavier. "This mine isn't dead, it's just sitting quietly." As soon as Freddy set up the first soil test, the team thought it was just a formal step. Nothing significant would come out, but the speed with which the needle jumped immediately after the meter was installed surprised everyone. The needle went straight from the green zone to the yellow zone, and then suddenly to the red zone, as if a major shock had hidden beneath the ground. Two crew members immediately said, "It's a glitch. The machine is out of order." But Freddy's face turned serious. He turned off the meter, checked the battery, and checked the connectors. Everything was fine. Such a spike wouldn't have happened without a large metallic mass. Freddy recalibrated the machine and tested it again. This time the needle remained somewhat stable, but as soon as he inserted the probe into the densest part of the soil, the readings suddenly shot up again. The needle literally got stuck in the red zone. This is almost impossible in normal mines. The crew was still terrified and kept saying, "The meter has gone crazy." But Freddy calmly said, "If the meter is crazy, why is it going crazy 3 times in the same place?" His voice was filled with excitement and tension. Juan couldn't quite understand how such a strong signal could come from such an abandoned-looking mine. He suggested to Freddy that perhaps some old metallic junk was buried beneath. But Freddy immediately replied, "Metal junk doesn't give such a high-density reading. This kind of spike only comes from a gold-rich pocket or a huge metallic structure." The crew's faces went blank. The workers, who had considered this place dead for years, realized for the first time that perhaps they had never truly understood the truth. Freddy took a third reading, this time at a different angle and depth. Each time the same reaction, needle up, red zone, and a fast beep that only comes when the reading is unusually powerful. At this point, Juan said a line that silenced everyone. "If this is a glitch, then it's the most consistent glitch in the world." The atmosphere had completely changed. The air grew heavy, the crew's breathing quickened, and everyone's minds were filled with the same question: what was lurking beneath? Freddy spoke softly. "Guys, this wasn't just a soil test. This is the first sign that this land isn't as dead as it appears." Juan, as usual, bent down to the soil to take a ground feel test. He placed his hand on the ground, and the next moment his expression changed drastically. A faint, but very strange, vibration emanated from beneath the soil, as if something solid existed deep beneath. This wasn't the usual vibration that comes from rocks or roots. This vibration was steady, cold, and felt like a large metal block quietly sleeping underground. Juan immediately gestured to Freddy. "Listen, something's different here." Freddy bent down to the same spot, and as soon as he placed his palm on the soil, the vibrations repeated the same pattern. Every 2 or 3 seconds, a faint metallic thump, like the internal echo of a hollow object. The crew initially joked, "That's your heartbeat?" But when 3 more people placed their hands on the spot and felt the same sensation, the atmosphere suddenly changed. The silence deepened. Everyone looked at each other, as if something unknown had just sent a cold shock down their spines. Juan scraped the soil and probed a little deeper. As he scraped the surface, the vibration became clearer. It wasn't random anymore. It had a perfect rhythm. Exactly such vibrations occur when a sealed metallic chamber, old tunnel roof, or huge solid structure is hidden beneath. Freddy said, softly, "Nature never makes sounds in such a perfect rhythm. There's something man-made here." This line made all the workers' hearts race. Then Juan softly tapped his wrench on the ground, and a faint metallic echo returned in the same direction. The crew literally froze. This was the moment that made the entire team realize for the first time that there wasn't just soil underneath. Something big, something heavy, and something metallic was lurking there. Freddy and Juan looked at each other, their faces filled with fear and excitement. Everyone standing there had the same question on their minds. If the vibration is so clear, how big a structure is hidden beneath? Freddy's voice was calm, but his words were heavy. Freddy picked up a soil sample from the vibration spot and put it into his portable analyzing kit. The crew was confident that the result would show a poor gold zone, as usual. After all, this was the same mine everyone had declared dead. But as soon as the machine showed the first reading, Freddy's eyes literally widened. The gold density meter showed an unreal number compared to normal, so high that no one standing there could believe it. Juan immediately asked, "The reading must be wrong. Run it again." But Freddy's voice was unusually serious. "It's not wrong. There's something big here." Freddy ground the sample again, tested it again, and the needle reached the same spot. Crossing the meter's yellow zone, the needle landed directly in the red region and froze. Normal mines have an average gold particle density of 1 to 3 ppm, but here the reading was reaching 18 to 20 ppm, almost 600% higher. This level is only found when there's either a rich, compact gold vein or a large metallic deposit hidden beneath. The crew members were initially shocked, then gradually became afraid, because dead mines don't behave this way. Juan personally took a sample and tested it, just to prove that Freddy's machine wasn't wrong. But the result was the same, needle, then red zone. The sample's texture also showed a faint glint of gold dust, which was totally unexpected for this area. Juan rubbed the soil between his fingers and said, "There's not just trace gold here. This indicates a whole pocket." Hearing this, the crew's breathing quickened. No one could understand how such rich data was possible. Freddy performed a final verification test, which measures density, mineral load, and conductivity. And this time, the result was even more frightening. Conductivity was unusually high, which meant that the possibility of a solid gold structure or a large metallic formation underneath became stronger. Freddy said in a deep tone, "Guys, as this isn't a normal mine, the data is telling us we're standing over a major jackpot." The crew fell into dead silence. Everyone just stared at the ground, as if an answer would suddenly emerge. When Freddy and Juan combined the gold density and metallic vibrations, a new suspicion arose. Perhaps there wasn't just a gold vein hidden beneath the ground, but an old abandoned tunnel. In such mines, older generations often built secret shafts or small chambers, which over time became buried in the soil. But the consistent and powerful readings here clearly indicated a hollow, man-made structure beneath. Freddy tested his foot pressure on the ground. The soil seemed slightly loose in some places and unusually compact in others. This difference often indicates a buried tunnel. Juan remembered that this had been seen many times in the Yukon and Alaska, where the surface appeared completely dead, but earlier miners had left hidden pockets or secret diggings beneath. Juan scraped the soil in the same spot to check deeper, and then said, "There's no natural settling here. It seems to be some kind of structured pattern." The crew members were initially in disbelief, but when Juan marked the vibration spot, the pattern appeared to resemble a straight line, as if a long chamber was hidden beneath, unnoticed. Freddy quickly made a rough sketch of which direction the readings were strongest. Looking at the graph, it appeared that the vibration and high-density signals were moving in roughly the same line. This was exactly the behavior found in an old horizontal tunnel, where compressed soil is found on the ceiling and mineral hotspots are found on the sides. Juan said half-jokingly, "If there's a tunnel below, then brother, these guys are sitting on the biggest discovery of their lives." But excitement was clearly visible in his eyes. The crew began to take this theory seriously. Two workers checked the nearby ridges and noticed that a portion of the ground was slightly lower than the rest. This could also be a sign of a tunnel collapse or chamber sink. Freddy also consulted an old map and found faint pencil lines marking some old diggings. He said, "Someone worked here before, but I don't know why they left." At this moment, a different kind of mystery hung in the air. This wasn't just a gold hunt anymore. It felt like uncovering a buried story. Everyone's eyes were filled with the same question. Are we about to discover the forgotten tunnel of an old miner down below, or a huge jackpot hidden in some chamber? As soon as the excavation began, the team thought everything would go smoothly. Freddy marked the exact dig spot by placing marker lines, and the excavator operator took the first scoop. But as the bucket went a little deeper, the machine made a strange noise, as if it had hit something solid. The operator tried again, applying pressure, but the excavator suddenly stopped. The engine's noise grew heavier, the hydraulics began to strain, and the entire machine began to vibrate slightly, as if something large and extremely hard was blocking the way. The crew was confused at first, thinking it might be a large rock, but Juan immediately noticed that the sound wasn't coming from ordinary stone. It was hollow metallic, the kind of sound that comes when an excavator is scraping against a metal plate, an old tunnel roof, or a sealed chamber. Juan raised his hand, signaling the operator to stop, and went to the place where the bucket was stuck. He removed the soil and felt the compacted layer beneath, and exclaimed in shock, "This isn't rock. This is something else." Freddy also performed a ground feel test, and as he performed the kick test, a dull metallic thud resonated from the ground. The three crew members literally recoiled. Everyone began to realize that the machine malfunction wasn't a glitch. Some heavy solid structure was genuinely blocking the ground. The excavator's hydraulic gauge was jumping 20–25%, which only happens when the bucket hits something unnatural, man-made. Freddy calmed down and said, "Guys, the excavator stopping isn't bad luck. It's a signal. We're at a gate." The next logical step was a ground-penetrating radar, GPR scan. The team set up the scanner and began taking slow passes over the surface. Initially, the lines were static, but on the third pass, the monitor suddenly began to detect an unusual shape. Freddy stared intently at the screen, his face slowly contorting into disbelief. The shape wasn't random. It resembled a perfect curve formation, and dense zones within it appeared as if a uniform metallic body existed. Juan zoomed in on the screen and said, "It's probably a dome structure, But Freddy interrupted him. "No, this isn't a natural shape. Nature doesn't make such perfect arcs." The shape emerging on the monitor resembled a giant, smooth golden mass. The density bars were reaching solid red, meaning the bottom was filled with highly conductive material. Gold vein density is never this uniform, but a gold cluster, nugget pocket, or sealed gold chamber shows such a pattern. The crew had now taken several steps back, staring at the screen in shock. A young worker said softly, "Sir, is this gold?" His words trembled. No one laughed. No one mocked. There was only one expression on everyone's face: pure disbelief. The most terrifying detail of the scan was that the shape wasn't small. It appeared to be 18-20 feet long and about 10 feet deep. The gold density was so high that the scanner repeatedly asked for calibration, as if it was exceeding its limits. Freddy said in a low voice, "If this reading is correct, then this isn't just gold. It's the entire body of a jackpot." Juan looked at the monitor, then at the ground, and then said to Freddy, "The 600% density we found above was just the surface signal. What's below is unimaginable." The sky was calm, the wind had stopped, and the crew's breathing was rapid. Everyone felt only one thing: this excavation wasn't a mine rescue. It had become the first step to uncovering a buried legend. As the dig went deeper, the behavior of the ground began to change completely. Initially, the soil was normal, but after 20 to 25 feet, the soil layers began to become loose and flaky. Freddy was constantly checking the depth reading, and each time the needle became slightly unstable. This was a sign that the pressure zones below were acting differently. Two crew members panicked and said, "Maybe we should stop." But Freddy said in a calm voice, "We're going in the right direction. This isn't fear, it's a sign." But as the team approached 40 feet, the soil began crumbling. Every time the bucket was lifted, the side walls suddenly broke off in small chunks and fell down. Juan immediately warned that if this continued beyond 50-55 feet, the entire pit was in danger of collapsing. The tension was evident on the crew's faces. Two workers openly said, "This is getting too unsafe. We can't risk our lives." Freddy explained that this instability could indicate the ceiling of a hollow structure, perhaps a tunnel or chamber. Hearing this line, everyone's faces were filled with excitement and fear. As the depth reached 50 feet, a new problem emerged. The soil below became unusually wet. This was alarming because abandoned tunnels often contain trapped water pockets, and sometimes they can burst without warning. Juan lifted the soil and checked. The clay layers were so moist that one wrong move could cause the entire wall to slide. The crew once again considered retreating, but Freddy calmly said, "If we retreat now, tomorrow it will be flooded and we'll never see what's below." The team was caught between fear and curiosity. Everyone quietly agreed to continue, but the slower, the safer. The team was now in the dangerous zone of 60 feet depth. The walls had become so fragile that even small vibrations were causing gravel fragments to fall. Juan ordered support beams, and the crew quickly installed wooden frames. But as the last support beam was installed, the ground gave a strange tremor, a vibration unlike anything they'd ever felt before. Everyone looked at each other as if the earth had issued a warning. And then came the biggest disaster, a water burst. As the excavator took a deeper scoop, a loud whoosh sound came from below, and a massive gush of muddy water burst upward. This wasn't just normal seepage. It was a pressurized water pocket trapped above the chamber. Within seconds, the entire pit began filling with a torrent of water. Workers were in panic mode. Some ran toward ladders, some retreated, and one worker narrowly escaped falling. It was pure chaos. But at that very moment, Juan made a heroic move. He immediately picked up the emergency valve pipe and pushed it in the direction of the bursting hole to temporarily divert the pressure. This technique is known only to experienced mechanics and miners. If he delayed even a few seconds, the entire pit would have collapsed, pulling everyone inside. Freddy shouted, "Hold it! Hold it steady!" And Juan, with literally all his strength, redirected the water flow. In a few moments, the water pressure eased slightly, and the crew began to emerge rapidly. Finally, when the last worker emerged, the entire left wall of the pit suddenly slid down. If the team had remained inside, they would have been buried beneath it. The entire team stood outside, the ground shaking, and everyone had the same expression, pure shock, and a strange realization that this place is as dangerous as it is valuable. Freddy took a deep breath and said, "If the water was protecting the pressure block so hard, then there's a big secret underneath." Juan, looking at the soil, said softly, "This wasn't just an accident. This was a warning shot from the chamber." The crew was no longer scared. They were amazed. Because even after such a dangerous water burst, one thing was clear. What is below is so big that the entire nature is trying to hide it. After controlling the water burst, the team rested for a while, but Freddy was more focused than ever. He knew that such unstable soil and pressurized water could only be found if there was a sealed structure or a high-value pocket hidden beneath. When excavation resumed, after 60 feet of depth, the bucket suddenly hit an extremely hard surface. Not a metallic sound, but a solid thunk, whose vibrations were felt right up to the operator's seat. Juan immediately stepped forward and examined the spot by hand. There was a rock-like layer beneath the soil, but its texture didn't seem like normal bedrock. Freddy took out a sample and observed. The rock was perfectly smooth, unusually dense, and had a very faint metallic sheen. He immediately understood this wasn't a normal geological formation. He gathered the team and said, "Guys, this layer looks like some kind of gatekeeper. No one knows what lies beneath it." The crew's faces were filled with both fear and excitement. The layer was so hard that even the excavator struggled. The bucket bounced repeatedly, and the machine's hydraulics groaned, as if there was something beneath that had been protected by the ground for centuries. Juan began light tapping with a hammer and chisel. Each tap produced a dull echo from the rock, a sign of a hollow structure. The crew stood back in fear, but Juan and Freddy's faces held a strange confidence. Freddy said, "If this layer cracks, we'll find what the readings have been screaming about for so long." The team double-checked the support ropes and beams, because this moment was potentially dangerous. Then the excavation continued cautiously. Hammer strikes deepened, and finally at one point, the rock developed a tiny crack. As the crack formed, light gray dust emerged from within, meaning the rock layer was old and compact. Juan applied more force, and the crack widened further. The entire team watched with bated breath. The atmosphere was so tense that no one moved. And then the moment came, the moment that literally froze the entire crew. As the crack opened a little further, an unusual glow emerged from within, a faint but unmistakable golden flash. This flash wasn't a reflection from a torch. It was the natural gold glow trapped inside. For a few seconds, the entire site went silent. Even the wind stopped. No one said a word. Everyone stared at the gap from which the glow was emanating. Freddy's eyes widened in disbelief. He bent so close to the ground that his shadow fell over the crack, but the glint of gold was still clearly visible. A crew member spoke softly. "Sir, is this gold?" His voice trembled as if he couldn't believe what he saw was real. Juan was also in shock. He shone the torch inside, and as the light penetrated the crack, the glow of the gold-reflecting particles within began to multiply. It seemed as if the inner walls were filled with veins of gold, or that gold clusters were stuck throughout the chamber. This wasn't just a small nugget shine. It was a sign of a deposit only heard of in stories. Freddy took a deep breath and said, "This isn't a random shine. This is the first glimpse of the jackpot." The crew had no reaction, just wide eyes, open mouths, and pure shock. At that moment, one thing became crystal clear. All the difficulties, all the water bursts, all the unstable soil, it was all for one reason. There was a treasure hidden beneath, something nature itself had been protecting for centuries. Freddy looked at the crack and said softly, "Guys, we've crossed the gatekeeper layer. Whatever's beneath now is going to change history." And that one tiny flash of gold changed the course of this entire story. This was no longer a rescue mission. It had become a battle to uncover a hidden 100-miller legend. As soon as the rock layer broke, Freddy and Juan decided they needed to slowly open the entire layer. This wasn't like regular mining. It required surgical precision, as whatever lay beneath couldn't be disturbed. The crew set ropes, tightened support beams, and then Juan lifted the largest hammer. After 2 massive swings, the crack widened further, and then a sight opened up that took everyone's breath away. Behind the crack was a chamber, a completely hollow space, as if someone had deliberately sealed it centuries ago. Freddy moved the torch, and as the light penetrated, the entire walls of the chamber shone with a pure golden glow. The first thing they saw were thick gold veins, the kind that nature creates very rarely. The veins spread across the walls from top to bottom, as if someone had applied gold with a paintbrush. Then as the angle changed, something else became visible inside. Gold nuggets, in large clusters. Some of the nuggets were so large that they looked like gold tennis balls. 2 crew members literally recoiled in shock. This wasn't a normal gold pocket. It was a natural treasure vault. And then the ultimate reveal. Gold bars half buried in the soil directly ahead. Yes, actual bar-shaped gold pieces. Even Freddy froze at the sight. He lightly scraped one bar with his hand. Pure yellow metal. No impurities, no rust. Just a clean, deep golden shine. It was in such a perfect shape that it looked like someone had manually molded it. But the surrounding geology suggested it was a natural formation, a rare place where gold compacts under pressure over centuries to form bar-like structures. Now it was time for calculations. Freddy made a quick assessment of density, volume, vein length, chamber width, and nugget clusters. Juan was measuring the depth. Together they came up with a rough figure, and both their faces went blank. "Juan, it's not just $1 million pocket," Freddy said in a low voice. Juan asked, "How much?" Freddy took a deep breath and replied, "Over $100 million, and that's just the first chamber." One of the crew workers said in disbelief, "This is impossible." But the occasional gold sheen belied his claim. Weight calculations matched, density readings confirmed. This jackpot was real. The scene was as amazing as it was dangerous. Such a major discovery sends a thunderstorm through the mining community. And that's exactly what happened. It took only a few hours for the news to leak. The next day, 2 white SUVs arrived at the site, a government inspection team. They had official documents and came to explain that safety, ownership, and legal verification are compulsory upon receiving such a large valuation. The crew was tense, but also shocked. This was the first time the government had arrived to inspect a site. The inspection team scanned the chamber, verified the purity of the gold, and then told Freddy bluntly, "Do you even know what you've discovered? This is the biggest discovery of the decade." The mining industry was in an uproar. Major miners, investors, and gold analysts began discussing it. News outlets labeled it historic find, hidden Yukon fortune, and Gold Rush's biggest discovery. Social media was in a literal meltdown. Fans declared this moment the most iconic in the show's history. Online forums were abuzz with theories. Was this hidden by an old mining clan? Is this a natural rare deposit? Could there be another chamber below? Excitement, disbelief, and shock were rife everywhere. Gold Rush viewers from around the world were commenting, "This changes everything. Freddy and Juan just made history. This is the biggest moment since the show started." The government ordered further investigation, and industry experts officially classified the chamber as one of the richest naturally formed gold chambers ever discovered. Freddy and Juan stood silent, knowing only one thing. If this first chamber was so big, what lay beneath? The entire mining world was stunned, but the real story was just beginning. The entire crew was ecstatic after the chamber was opened, but Freddy's attention was riveted by something else. The scanner was still consistently showing high readings. The gold density wasn't concentrated in just one area. The signals were becoming more powerful downward. This clearly meant this chamber wasn't alone. A larger hollow zone existed elsewhere within the soil, perhaps even larger than the one that had triggered this $100 million jackpot. Juan inserted a deeper probe, and the reading spiked again, so much so that the machine triggered an overload warning. The crew looked at each other as if their breaths had stopped. Freddy looked at the ground and said softly, "Guys, this jackpot is just the beginning." His voice was calm, but the words held a suspense that silenced the entire team. The narrator's single, powerful line echoed in the outro. "Subscribe. If you miss the next twist, you'll miss the real secret of this story."